I invite people at my house very often. And you always want to do a bit special when the guests are coming. And very often I use fish. We have a beautiful striped bass today, and sometimes a bit costlier ingredient than you would conventionally do, as we're going to do today with a rack of veal. This is expensive. And we'll start with the fish. I have a leek here, and what you want to do for your leek at that point, you want to do a julienne that is taking the lower part. This you keep for soup or stock, and that you want to cut in half. Now, this has been organized by Mother Nature in a life, you know, all in strip like this, so you can put it flat and cut it into thin strips in what we call a julienne. The julienne refers to a way of cutting everything in thin strip like that, and it is, in a sense, l'enfant chéri of nouvelle cuisine. You know? A lot of things in nouvelle cuisine are with julienne. So here we have a julienne of leek, and you know the leek is very tight in the center, so it's clean. As I can see here, I have no dirt up, I have some dirt here. If I have dirt, you look at it, then you clean it after. Don't clean it before, because if you clean it before, you disorganize the whole thing and you have to put it back together. But if it's dirty, and take a bowl of water, clean it up. And you know, very often people clean something up in water and tend to take that and put it into a sieve. You cannot do that. You have to lift it up out of the water this way. And we have a julienne of carrot here, and we have onion. In addition to that, we have garlic. Now, sliced garlic. We're going to put the sliced garlic is going to be milder than if I cut it very thin, you know. So we put the sliced garlic in there, and the peel of lemon. And the peel of lemon, you know, will have a lot of taste because I'm using only the surface part of the skin where you have the essential oil, and with that again, we do another type of julienne. Now all of this, I'm going to put in my saucepan here, and we bring that to a boil. A bit of white wine, a little bit of olive oil. I have all my seasoning there, the salt, and maybe even a little dish of water, of butter, or maybe nothing at all for the time being. Then the fish. Look at that fish here. It is nice and very clear eye with deep red gill, you know, and that indicates freshness. If you buy those this way, those are striped bass, and it used to be that you couldn't buy it. It was a sport fish, and you couldn't get it. Now, those are raised fish. Put it into a plastic bag to scrape it this way, because that will go all over the place, you know, the scale. So this is a good way of doing it. This way. You do it on each side. I'm just going to do one side to show it to you. Now it's nice and thin. You see there is no more scale. And to clean that up, I mean to take the fillet out of it, you want to put it flat. Put your knife flat on the center fillet to remove your whole fillet this way. Remember that that recipe I can do it whole. And if I were to do it, cook the fish whole, I would remove the head, you know. In any case, the head, everything you have to keep to put into the freezer or something and keep it for stock. Now I have those 4 fillets here, and if my fish now should have cooked for about a minute, whenever all the vegetables are a bit soft, then you place your fillet right on top of it here. You know, you can remove the skin if you want, but in that recipe it's so thin, I'm leaving the skin for 4. As I say again, maybe a little piece of butter goes into a recipe, and that will cook for about 4 or 5 minutes, you know. And during that time, I want to show you what we do with our veal. First thing that I want to do is probably clean up my finger a little bit, take the fish out. And here I have a very expensive cut of meat. This is called a rack of veal, you know. And the rack of veal, you have that part here, and the large hand. This is the shoulder where you have the bone and all that. It's like when you bag a standing rib roast, the best part is this side. 1 rib at a time, and you can see why it's so expensive in a restaurant, you know, because you cut it, you don't get that much out of it, And now we want to trim it totally, to take most of the fat and the sinew out of it. All the fat here, we're going to grill that, put it on the grill. And for me, this is one of the biggest treats. You clean it up along the bone here, and most of that is removed. You scrape it off. Remember, in a restaurant, we use those pieces here into pâté or thing like this. In the case here, we leave it this way. I have a veal shop here. It's about 10 ounce, and that's quite expensive. It would cost you about $3.50 in a restaurant each piece, And this, we are going to grill it in the middle. But before that, I want to check on my fish. And the fish, usually you see the way the filet curl up like that, and it's barely cooked. And in the context of nouvelle cuisine, very often we would do those filets not to cook. As in a former type of cuisine, we tend to overcook the vegetable and the fish also. Now, you don't have to go to the extreme, Remember, it has to be cooked, but it can be just slightly crunchy. All color, different type of vegetable. And that, you want to serve that directly. You could, if you want, also remove the skin. I think it's cooked, but, or leave it on. And this is fine because I've removed the scale, so I don't really have to remove the skin. And there, what I would want to do, maybe remove one of the fillet on the side so that I could have a little bit of that mixture underneath of different color. Remember the julienne of leek, the carrot, and so forth. Then you take one of those fillets gently that you place on top. You want to put maybe a couple of those vegetables on top, not too much. You want to keep it nice and clean, but certainly a little bit of the juice. Because the juice, remember, adds the olive oil and a little bit of butter and a dash of white wine. This is what we call a hache courte. That is, it's cooked in a liquid, but a courte liquid, which is between a liquid and a sauce, really. Well, it's time to cook our veal chop now. And those beautiful veal chop, what we want to do, just brush them a little bit with oil. Those are milk-fed veal, nice and pink, also called nature veal. Sometimes it's called Provimi veal. They give the baby calf sometimes a formula made of protein, vitamin, mineral. That's why it's called Provimi. So just salt, pepper, a little dash of olive oil. And again, at the last moment, you don't want to put your oil, or your salt rather, early on it. And then we want to put that to cook on the grill here, gently. So, with that, we are going to serve a kind of vegetable patty, which is made with a lot of different types of vegetable that I have here. I have fresh peas, this is organic red pepper, corn, spinach, and I have the grits here. The grits is, of course, corn, a corn, granulated corn, hominy sometimes called, that is used a great deal in the South, and I love the taste of it. So we'll start with this. I want to cut those. So we cut a little bit of the red pepper. Usually you'll take the rib out of it, and cut them into little dice. This way. Now you don't have to remove the skin for that. It's perfectly fine. Well, the grain you should remove. That I have here. And if you have another color paper, it's perfectly fine. Now the spinach here, you may want to cut your spinach in pieces like that also. It makes it easier to mix it together, So here I have, and what I want to do next is to show you how to cut corn. Very often when you take the kernel out of the corn, you can do it this way or this way. I have a tendency to do it against me. People tend to put their knife and apply pressure here. And here is what happened. It's kind of dangerous. And why that? Because a lot of people use only one part of the knife. And crushing forward, if I start here and if I finish here, and all of a sudden it's very easy. As you can see, because I'm using the knife actually this way, you see? And or this way. But one way or the other, I'm starting at one point of the knife, finishing at the other end of the blade. That technique is very important. You can use even the end of it, scrape the rest of this. And now that goes in the compost pile, or you give it to the cow if you have cow, not to the dog. My dog wouldn't eat any of this. Only eat good stuff like me. So now we have fresh peas here. All of that we're going to cook in a little bit of water. I have a cup of water here that I put to boil. And that cup of water, I have no salt or anything in it. And I want to place that in this so that by the time it boils for a couple of minutes, I have basically almost no water left. And the little water that I have left, I'm going to use it to cook with the grits. Let's see my veal chop now. They are doing beautifully well. There I'm putting them on the side. It's going a bit fast. You want to cook that on a very clean grill. You know, that's important. Nice clean grill. And what I have here, I have chicken stock. A little bit of chicken stock, no fat in it. We're going to cook the grits right into it. So let it fall gently, like you do semolina, you know. If you do that type of thing, you bring that to a boil, and that will cook 20-30 minutes, you know, stirring it. Look at it occasionally, stir it, because it may stick in the bottom. Let me look at my vegetable now, if they came back to a boil. Yeah, the vegetables are getting there. And what I have on this side, I have grits, which has been cooking, you know, for the amount of this one here. So, I mean, been cooking for like 30 minutes, but the same amount than what I have here. So look at what I have here. It's nice and thick, which is basically the way I want it. And in there, you know, the only thing that I don't have here would be the juice of those vegetables, because when those have come to a boil, what I do, they could boil, you know, one more minute or so. But we're going to leave it at this. And what I want to do here is actually to press, you know, on top of that to extrude most of the juice out of it and mix that in our grits. This is our vegetable burger, so you can do a lot of different variation on this. And then I put some of the juice. I have too much juice here. Usually you would have about half a cup of juice left over. So you add this to it, you cook it until it's thick like this, which will take, as I say, approximately 25-30 minutes. And now this, you want to mix it together. You know, I do that with farina, grit, with semolina. Semolina is a wheat type of thing. You do that with couscous, any of that type of mixture to be used if you want as a binding agent, you know. So, the most important thing now is to let it rest, you know. Spread it out. Put a piece of plastic wrap, and I like usually to put it on top of it, you know, so it touches like this, so there is no oxidation. And then you want this to be really cold, you know, now. Cool it off, and I have some right here, which is cold. And we are going to saute that in a little skillet here. So, you can see that I have two patties here, which have been formed together. They're still a bit soft. You can use a plastic wrap to mold it together, or you can use your finger. In any case, you can do that ahead. You know, take a bunch of this, put it in there to form your patty. You know, you could even squeeze it together, you know, nicely like this to form. This is still delicate, you know. I could do it, cooking it longer, and it will end up being firmer, but it's not as good. So always go with what is the best to it. Even if it tends to break down a little bit, it is not that important, in my opinion. So, again, we put another one like this. Squeeze it to make a nice patty. You know, a vegetable patty like this could be used instead of meat sometime. You know, people don't want to eat meat. A light type of different dish, you know, for the summer, it is a nice thing to do. So you would invert it nicely, you know, on your hand and put it preferably in a non-stick pan, you know, like this, to cook. This one here, and this one there. Okay, that will cook a couple of minutes, 3-4 minutes on each side. Remember, everything is cooked there. You know, the grits is cooked, the vegetables are cooked, but of course it's cold and you want a nice little crust on top of it. So you want to cook it for a little while. And while this is cooking, you can even partially cover it if you think it's going to splatter too much. And let's see the other side of your two veal chop. You know, you want to do a quadrillage, we call. That is, you turn it so that you have a nice mark on each side and that nice taste of the charcoal, you know. And now we're going to do the sauce for those veal chop. You can serve them plain, but I like to do it sometime with a bit of a sauce. And as you can see here, what I have some red onion, and the red onion cut into fairly large pieces here, about half-inch pieces. Those are very sweet onion. You can use, you know, those onions, sometimes moi we use, or walla walla onion, or Vidalia onion. All of those are nice and sweet, but those red onions are quite sweet too. I have capers. You know, the capers is the bud of a flower, you know, and the small caper like that, this is very nice. We use here shredded skin, you know, the shredded skin that you do very simply by taking a vegetable peeler and taking the skin, you know, of the lemon, taking only the surface like this, and that you do into a fine julienne, that is a thin layer like this, you know. This is very good. Some lemon juice. You know, we press lemon juice in there. And here I put a couple of tablespoons of chicken stock, just to extend my sauce. Remember, this is a light sauce with the veal, you know. Again, a little bit of olive oil in there. I have at least for 4 here, you know. And then we put sage. Sage goes well with veal, as well as parsley for that matter. I can put a little bit of the parsley, a little bit of the sage. I have here, it has a really, and there is many, the family of salvia, so-called, or sage, you know. There is many, many different types. This one is deep green. There is some which are red, some which are yellow-red, and so forth. It's great. And in different parts of the country, particularly on the West Coast, this grows very well, you know. And it comes back year after year, so it's a great thing to have. So, I'm going to mix this. To serve with the veal chop. And now what I would like to do, see, that sauce can be done ahead, is to turn my patty here. See what they look like. As I say, you have to be I hold the top of it, you know, it tends to splatter a little bit, but they are beautiful, look at that. And now they cook on the other side for a few more minutes. And we're going now to prepare the dessert, you know, and the dessert is a very interesting dessert. Today, it's a dessert where you can use a lot of leftover. And what I have here is pear, different type of pear, you know. I have 3 pears, which are peeled. I'm putting brown sugar on top of it, and espresso. You know, espresso or a deep coffee, when you have coffee leftover, one of the best way to use your coffee leftover is to do this. I'll show you how to peel a pear. Cut the bottom of it. You cut it around. Actually, very often we peel that with a vegetable peeler. With a vegetable peeler, it's probably easier for most people. Look at this. The pear is round, so you cut round. At least for that part of the pear. Now the pear is long, then you cut long. Try to follow the shape of the fruit. You know? Those happen to be busk, and they need a bit more time than other pears to cook. Now with that little melon bowler, I take the center, so everything is eatable now. So we have everything in there. What you want to do is to put a small plate upside down on top of it to keep those pears in the syrup and put them to cook. Put them to cook here with a lid on top of it. And now that the pear are cooking, I can show you some which are completely cooked, which I have right here. I have the syrup right here and the pear there. Now they have that deep amber, color of the pear. You see what happened after the pear are cooked, you let them cool in the syrup. Then you take the pear and you reduce the syrup. And the syrup, I reduce it to like 1 cup of very strong intensity. So this is like a mahogany color, very strong taste of coffee there. In that syrup, actually, you can serve it by itself, or you can put a little bit of Kahlua, or you can put the Kahlua on top. That will go well with it. And lemon, little lemon rind, that will go with it. You can decorate this. This is the leaves, from citrus fruit. It would be nice to decorate that in there. And a couple of edible flowers around, and we have a beautiful dessert here. And now what we'll do is to finish our veal that I have there. I have my 2 veal chops, which are beautifully brown now. This is a treat, those veal. Expensive, but very good. I put 2, of course, for 2 people. We are going to put our vegetable burger just next to it. Here, another one right there. That smells good. And on top of that, we'll put the sauce. This is, remember, our caper lemon juice sauce, which will go well with this very Mediterranean, expensive, but so good. A lot of the friends who come to my house are chefs, so we cook together. Sometimes we fight at the stove, but we cook together. But we eat together also, that's even more important. And that type of food is ideal for that. It's expensive, yes. Occasionally I do a veal chop, not all the time because it is an expensive piece of meat. But the best for your friend all the time. Be sure, however, to cook it properly. Now that type of cuisine, very elegant. I think the fish here that we have on that little bed area of vegetable, a bit acidic. Remember, we use a Sonoma Chardonnay here to cook it with. The fish is barely cooked, but cooked. And the vegetables are slightly crunchy, but cooked. And with that, we have the veal there, those beautiful veal chops, pink inside, not raw, but pink inside, not overcooked, it would be a shame. And we have those vegetable burgers. Those vegetable burgers by themselves are really terrific with the grits and all of those different types of vegetables. It goes well with it, with the juice and the sauce that we made with it. You'll love that dish. And finally, a salad, of course, and the dessert. The dessert, it's a great way of using your leftover coffee. You can do a great espresso, but your leftover coffee, you poach it in it, serve it cold, a little bit of Kahlua, and of course, with that, we're going to have a glass of wine. We're going to have another Chardonnay, this one from the Napa Valley. Nice and very full and fruity. I love a glass of Chardonnay with the fish and the veal. You have to do that dish and that menu for your friend. They're going to love it. I love to do it for you. Happy cooking.